We live in interesting times. Today's stories. Alberta facing more restrictions as COVID-19 cases caused by variants rise. Health Canada issues label change and guidance on the Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Ontario unveils action plan to protect health and economy. BC hire 1,400 out-of-work hospitality workers to assist mass vaccination clinics. Hawaii's last monarch remembered for championing nonviolence. In sports, the Toronto Raptors keep Kyle Lowry, trade Norman Powell to the Portland Trail Blazers. And we show you the benefits of forest bathing. Hello everyone, you're watching Eagle News Canada. I'm Cara Cabuso Pascual reporting from St. John, New Brunswick, bringing you stories from across the globe. Alberta is facing more restrictions as COVID-19 cases caused by variants rise. Eagle News correspondent Thomas Likeness reports.
This past week, the province told COVID-weary Albertans there would be no further easing of public health measures and to be prepared for more restrictions if case numbers continue to skyrocket. Case numbers have been going up, as have the number of people in hospital with COVID, and more troubling, the variants of this virus. Variants represent about 25% of the total of active cases, and they're set to become the dominant strain of the COVID virus. That concerns Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Dina Hinshaw.
The variant case has been reported in other jurisdictions where it has become the dominant strain to have 40 to 60% increased risk of hospitalization, increased risk of death. And while we have not yet in our own data seen a specific increased risk, we also have a relatively small number of cases when you compare to jurisdictions like the UK or Denmark, where it's become the dominant strain.
As case numbers increase, hospitals in Alberta are already preparing for an influx of COVID patients. The lag time between reported cases and hospitalizations is usually about 2 weeks. Infectious disease specialist Dr. Darren Markland tweeted this week that the hospital he works at has reopened its COVID wards because of the variants. Hinshaw says complacency is one of the factors driving the increase in case numbers.
People are tired, and so some of the public health precautions slip aside. And when that happens over time, then the virus, whether it be variant or the wild-type COVID, have the opportunity to spread further.
And that brings us to the question of further measures. As I said at the beginning of my report, Alberta loosened some restrictions a few weeks ago. But are we now in a situation, Dr. Hinshaw, of one step forward and 2 steps back?
If spread escalates, if we're seeing the spread and the transmission of our cases, and particularly variant cases, continuing to rise, it may be possible, it may be necessary to bring in additional restrictions.
As we've said before, even though we can see light at the end of the tunnel, we have to remember it's a long tunnel. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Health Canada issues label change and guidance on the Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Here's Eagle News correspondent Andre Lajoie with the details.
Health Canada updated the product's monograph or label for Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccine to provide information on very rare reports of blood clots associated with low levels of blood platelets following immunization with AstraZeneca vaccine. Following reports of those very rare adverse events in Europe, Health Canada has worked closely with European regulators to review the evidence as they update the product's monograph. Health Canada reassured Canadians that the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine continues to be safe and effective at protecting them against COVID-19 and encourage people to get immunized with all COVID-19 vaccines that are authorized in Canada. Health Canada is consulting with the scientific expert in Canada and internationally to discuss the very rare events and continue to be in regular contact with international regulators and manufacturers of Astrazeneca vaccine to review all evidence as it becomes available. This is André Lajoie reporting from Ottawa, Canada. We live in interesting times.
Ontario unveils action plan to protect health and economy. Eagle News correspondent Yolanda Aspiras reports.
The Ontario government reveals its 2021 budget in response to the COVID-19 action plan. It is the second budget announced by the province during the pandemic. Minister of Finance and President of the Treasury Board, Peter Betlen-Falvey, provides a detailed plan to protect the people's health and the economy. Take a look.
Ontario's total response to COVID-19 is now $51 billion. And this next phase of Ontario's action plan makes good on the Premier's simple promise to the people: we will do whatever it takes to keep you safe.
$16.3 billion is allocated to protect people's health during the pandemic. This amount aims to support long-term care and strengthen the entire healthcare system.
And today I'm announcing that Ontario is making more than $1 billion available for our province-wide vaccination plan. For instance, we are investing in a program to provide safe, accessible transportation for persons with disabilities and older adults with limited mobility to get to their vaccination appointment. And we are dedicating an additional $50 million, Mr. Speaker, to vaccination programs in Indigenous communities in which so many are at higher risk. Mr. Speaker, nobody will be left behind. Today, we are accelerating our long-standing work with a more than $30 billion plan to build, expand, and improve hospitals across the province over the next 10 years. To protect our loved ones in long-term care from the deadly COVID-19 virus, Ontario is investing an additional $650 million this year to prevent the spread, increase staffing, and buy more supplies such as masks. That brings, Mr. Speaker, the total additional resources provided since the beginning of the pandemic to over $2 billion. So to help the thousands of people struggling with mental health and addiction issues, our government is making record investments, including an additional $175 million in 2021-22 to provide more and better care for everyone who needs it, bringing our total investment this year to $525 million. We are investing an additional $18.2 million over 3 years to protect and support First Nations, Inuit and Métis women and girls who face higher rates of violence than others.
This plan also outlines a total investment of $23.3 billion to support families, workers and employers that have been affected financially by the pandemic. Here are the details.
We are providing a third round of payments through the Ontario COVID-19 Child Benefit. This announcement today brings the total direct support we have provided families since March of 2020 to $1.8 billion. And that's why in January we announced the Ontario Small Business Support Grant for employers affected by the province-wide shutdown. Mr. Speaker, to date, about 100,000 eligible small businesses have already seen funds flow into their bank accounts. Businesses and communities from Sarnia to Sault Ste. Marie, from Kenora to Kitchener, from Brockville to Barrie. I've heard from someone who said this support is the difference between keeping the lights on and turning them off for good. So as we roll out the vaccines, we recognize small businesses are still struggling and will face additional expenses and more pressure as things get back to normal. So today, we are announcing a second payment to the Ontario Small Business Support Grant so that eligible small businesses will automatically receive a second payment in the amount equal to their first.
NDP leader Andrea Horwath expresses her disappointment of the released 2021 budget plan by the provincial government. Take a listen. This budget was a chance to give folks health and hope for the future. But Ford's budget doesn't do that. If this were my budget, I would urgently invest in LTC long-term care, our students and schools, a new Brompton hospital, and the emergency room Peel Memorial needs. Ford didn't do that. In Toronto, Yolanda Aspiras, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
British Columbia is set to hire 1,400 out-of-work tourism and hospitality workers to assist with non-clinical staff work at mass vaccination clinics. Here's Eagle News correspondent Vanessa Condi with the report.
Many sectors have been hit hard due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The province of British Columbia will be hiring 1,400 furloughed workers to work in the province's immunization clinics. They are working with 14 organizations across the tourism and hospitality industry, which has been hit the hardest. The organizations include Air Canada, Vancouver International Airport, and Vancouver Canucks. Premier John Horgan provides the details.
And when we think of the hardest hit industries, of course, right at the top of that list is our tourism sector, and our hospitality industries as well have seen a reduction in their ability to serve customers, and that has led to declining employment in some sectors. We today are announcing a program that we put in place with 14 businesses across the province, taking advantage of that superior hospitality the tourism sector is so renowned for here in British Columbia, to make sure that we can put some of those furloughed workers back to work. Some 1,400 laid off tourism and hospitality workers will now be doing non-clinical staff work within our immunization centres.
Across the province, the mass immunization clinics are starting to open up, and by April, they are expected to be up and running. Premier Horgan mentions that the workers will be paid by their company and will be topped up by the province. Dr. Penny Ballum, who is leading the province's immunization program, has said, "We are extremely grateful to have them stepping forward and bringing their incredible skills around welcoming people. As cases continue to rise, a successful immunization rollout is even more important." In Victoria, BC, Vanessa Condi, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Coming up, Hawaii's last monarch remembered for championing nonviolence. In sports, the Toronto Raptors keep Kyle Lowry, trade Norman Powell to the Portland Trail Blazers. And we show you the benefits of forest bathing. Eagle News Canada continues after this.
Factual.
We have to defeat the virus everywhere.
Timely information. Balanced. Not only in the country, but also abroad.
I'm certain of one thing.
Interviews that people need to know. Watch Aguila Pilipinas, a one-hour newscast of reports coming from regional hubs in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Know the important updates in Asia in ASEAN in Focus. Track the latest stories in the provinces in Aguila Provincia. Tune into Mata ng Aguila, the evening primetime news program of Net25. Balanced and objective, Mata ng Aguila covers national and international issues, tackles news on business, health, science, and technology, entertainment, sports and human interest features, and current events. And Eagle News International delivers the latest global reports, impartial, accessible, and up-to-date. It brings to fore EBC's rich international scope and access to valuable information streams.
Well, thank you to explain our health outdoor.
Catch these programs on Net25. You can also watch our news programs through eaglenews.ph and Eagle News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News Canada. I am Cara Cabuso Pascual from St. John, New Brunswick. In celebration of Women's History Month, Hawaii remembers its last monarch who upheld her lifelong conviction for peaceful, nonviolent protest, even when faced with defeat and humiliation. For more, we have three of our EBC correspondents from Hawaii Pacific: Mio Asanas, Arian Torres, and Charmaine Sierra.
Well, she remains one of the most important figures in our history. Liliuokalani was a very tolerant monarch.
The measure of a leader can be determined by how they handle defeat, and no better was it shown than by the Kingdom of Hawaii's only ruling queen and last sovereign, Liliuokalani.
She presided over a very, very difficult time in Hawaiian history when her people, the indigenous peoples of Hawaii, the native Hawaiians, were at incredible risk of cultural and even physical extinction.
How she handled defeat is tied to the concept of kapu aloha, a Hawaiian term that preaches nonviolence in protests.
We can't go back on history, but we can go back and recognize the people that found the best solution that they could under the circumstances for their people, for their cultures, for their vision. And I think that that's what she did. You know, she was dealing with the realities of a very difficult situation.
Kapu aloha. The phrase has been credited to her for the way she handled her removal from the throne and the subsequent annexation of the islands to the United States.
There was change in the world. That was a time of great activity by our country out there in the world. What was part of our country's coming of age, but had such devastating consequences to a lot of the world, especially to indigenous peoples, indigenous cultures, and that was true here.
January 17, 1893, American Henry E. Cooper, accompanied by the U.S. military, addressed a crowd assembled in front of the Royal Palace to proclaim the end of the Hawaiian monarchy and the formulation of a provisional civilian government.
They introduced the Marines and some of the sailors off the ship and surrounded the Iolani Palace. But because Liliuokalani did not want any bloodshed, the defenders of the Iolani Palace put down their arms. At that time she was in power, so she didn't want to see bloodshed, and she felt that she didn't want any upheaval in her kingdom.
Despite being afforded multiple opportunities to rise up against the Americans, Liliuokalani remained steadfast to her conviction for nonviolence.
We always going to disagree about something, but let us not go violent.
In 1895, Queen Liliuokalani agreed to formally abdicate her throne and was subsequently placed under house arrest at Iolani Palace. Liliuokalani continued to protest against annexation of the islands, which eventually occurred in July 1898. In that same year, she published her autobiography and composed the world-famous song Aloha Oi, translated as Farewell to Thee. In 1993, on the centennial anniversary of the kingdom's demise, President Bill Clinton signed a joint resolution of Congress formalizing the federal government's apology for actions taken against the people of Hawaii.
She maintained her commitment to her people, her dignity. She remains very, very relevant today, and she's entirely worthy of celebration in this Women's History Month, along with many other women of Hawaii.
Reporting from the Big Island of Hawaii,
This Charmaine Serra.
Reporting from Pango Pango in American Samoa, this is Ariane Torres.
Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm USNS Eagle News.
We live in interesting times.
The Toronto Raptors decided to keep All-Star guard Kyle Lowry in the NBA's trade deadline on Thursday, but shipped Norman Powell to the Portland Trail Blazers. Eagle News correspondent Tenny Sumagi with the details.
Kyle Lowry celebrated his 35th birthday on Thursday, which happened to be the NBA's trade deadline. The Toronto Raptors decided to keep their six-time All-Star guard. Lowry spoke about how much he misses the fans, the workers at Scotiabank Arena, and got a birthday text from rapper Drake.
You know what, man? What I truly miss the fans. Like, I miss the fans. You know, I miss just the atmosphere, right? The energy, just the overall, just being there, right? I miss, you know, Romeo at the elevator giving me dap, and you know, just everybody being around, and Wild Bill running up and down, holding the doors open for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the small things, the minute things that people don't know. That's like the internal stuff that we go to deal with every day, right? We got our chef Ali up there that, you know, comes down and gives us food and all that type stuff, and just the whole everything that's going around. You know, I miss Gus. You know what I'm saying? Like, you miss everything. You miss the small, minute things. Hold on, you guys, we have a special guest here.
I just want to know if you guys have any. I'm here to translate. I'm his translator.
You know you're not. No, I know you're not. I'll hit you when I'm done, bro. All right, y'all can keep going.
The Raptors, however, decided to deal Norman Powell to the Portland Trail Blazers in exchange for Gary Trent Jr. and Rodney Hood.
The thing I'm gonna miss most, just the city. You know, Toronto was the start of everything. Truly embraced who I am as a player. All the memories, all the connections and relationships I created over my time there in the organization. You know, definitely gonna miss that, and the vibe and the fan base playing in Scotiabank. Yeah, definitely gonna miss the city and the fans and the organization, and just the whole vibe of Toronto was amazing.
Coming from a two-guard set, knowing where to find my spots to score, you know, knowing my role and playing that to the best of my ability. You know, I'm coming here to gel with everybody, to try to help get on the winning track and win as many games as possible, you know, and be a great teammate. Wherever it could go, the sky is the limit. You know, I'm going to come in every day, work as hard as I can. You've seen the proof is in the pudding, you know, with Siakam. You see Fred's success, you see Kyle's success. You see all the players that came here and they left, the success that they had while they were here, or left and went on to have, you know, success in their respective teams. So really just coming in, diving in head first, being a sponge, trying to learn as much as I can, you know, like I said, gel with everybody, you know, get to it, lock in, get some wins, you know, and play the game of basketball how we all know how to do.
Tune in to Eagle News for more stories and highlights on the NBA throughout the season. In New York, Tenny Sumagi, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Have you heard of forest bathing? Eagle News correspondent Jeanette Duazo tells us how this form of nature therapy is great for your health. Jeanette?
Hello, have you heard of forest bathing? That's what we're talking about today. So let's go. Is it an exercise? Do you need any equipment to do this? Is there a center to go to do forest bathing? Forest bathing is actually a Japanese art. Shinrin Yoku. Shinrin in Japanese means forest, and Yoku means bath. By simply spending time in the forest, being mindful of the surrounding, taking notice with our senses, sight, hearing, smell, and touch. In 1982, Japan launched a national health program from Shinrin-yoku. But forest bathing is also practiced in different parts of the world, with different terms used such as forest therapy or nature therapy. The Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, an international association that uses methods and practice based on scientifically backed research in health science. The association has forest therapy guides in 55 countries on 6 continents and has councils in Canada, Europe, and Asia Pacific. According to the association, forest bathing seems to significantly mitigate the root cause of a multitude of ailments. Stress. Excess stress can play a role in headaches, high blood pressure, heart problems, diabetes, skin conditions, asthma, and arthritis, among many other ailments. The levels of stress hormone cortisol decrease in test subjects after a walk in the forest, compared with a control group of subjects who engaged in walks within a laboratory setting. In a 2007 study, men taking 2-hour walks in the woods over a 2-day period exhibited a 50% increase in levels of natural killer cells, the body's disease-fighting agents. While more research is needed, some preliminary research is even suggesting possible anti-cancer benefits, such as Dr. Lee's 2008 study of 13 female nurses on a 3-day trip, in which the trip produced anti-cancer proteins and benefits lasting more than 7 days after the trip. Dr. Lee and the scientific community continue to research this exciting potential. In British Columbia, there are so many wooded areas and parks and other natural environments. To fully benefit from this therapy, one will have to commit to immerse themselves and be mindful of the surrounding. No distractions like reading emails or checking our phone. Walk slowly, listen to the birds, the breeze, and perhaps find a quiet place and sit. In British Columbia, Jeanette Tuaso, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
That's our program for today. Join us again next week as we bring stories that matter to you. Visit our website at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Cara Cabuso Pascual. We'll live in interesting times.